Hello, I'm Henry Emmons, and welcome back to Joy Lab.
And I'm Aimee Prasek. So, 'tis the season of resolutions, and I think most of us believe that we will accept ourselves after we achieve those resolutions, after we lose the weight, land the job, fix some flaw. But that approach keeps us stuck in an endless cycle of unworthiness. We are tackling that today. That's why we're digging into self-acceptance. And important point, self-acceptance is not surrender. It's fuel for our growth and healing. So let's dive in. If you are just joining us now and you haven't listened to the last two episodes, our element of joy that we're working on this month is inspiration. And we are in a bit of a self-connection series. So you don't necessarily need to go back to the first episode for January, but it certainly can help either now or after this one. And we are breaking down self-connection into those three aspects, which are self-awareness, self-acceptance, that's today, and then self-alignment. We'll get into that later. So we talk a lot about self-acceptance. A lot. We talk about it a lot. A lot.
It's really important.
It is. It is essential for good mental health. The big mission with self-acceptance is that you accept your internal states, your preferences, your external states, the stuff you're mastering, and the stuff you're really terrible at, all the pieces of you, realizing this is all part of you for lots of reasons and lots of consequences, good or bad. All of this is part of you. And as we've talked about before, when we're digging into self-acceptance, this is not surrendering to whatever the current state is. It's not that we accept whatever and always call it good or never take action. This is really about fully accepting that this is it. This is what is happening now, rather than rejecting or avoiding this stuff. It gives you the full picture so that you can take action if you need to.
Yes, I think we sometimes fall into the trap of thinking that acceptance is passive. It's giving up. It's just letting things be. And there is a little truth to our need to let things be as they are. But in a sense, I think practicing acceptance is the opposite of being passive or giving up. Self-acceptance is a really active, day-to-day, moment-to-moment practice. It is never done because our mind is forever creating new judgments, new comparisons that we fall short of, or just things that take us away from our center and leave us essentially feeling badly about ourselves. It's something that self-acceptance is something we have to take on as a real commitment, which we only tend to do once we've fully realized that this other way we've been doing things just isn't working. And in fact, it's making things worse.
Oh, yeah. I actually thought when you started, you had said, we sometimes fall into the trap of thinking. I thought you were just going to stop there. I was like,
could have.
Absolutely. But then you continued, and it's just even more true. We think, and then we evaluate, and we continue to evaluate and judge, and judge and judge and judge.
Yeah.
So I'll link to some great episodes actually we've done in the past on the power of self-acceptance, like the obstacles, strategies, lots of tools for you all. Particularly, I think our recent series that we did on authenticity, we talked about self-acceptance loads there. So I'll link to that. And during that series, we talked about how authenticity and self-acceptance work together. And Henry, I loved how you noted that we can use those moments when we're not feeling authentic as opportunities to practice self-acceptance.
Right.
Yeah. When those feelings of disconnection rise up, we can accept them, we can be with them, and we can really listen for these ones that are like in our inner world. particularly that disconnect that has to do with kind of the knowing and loving of ourselves versus just expressing ourselves. So self-connection is more like a seed. The self-awareness and self-acceptance are part of this inner work. It's what we need to then use to go out in the world in a way that feels connected to our true self. So we can notice when these feelings of disconnect, I think, appear and see them as opportunities to practice self-connection. We can check in with some questions when those feelings rise up. Am I showing up for my own inner world? Am I listening to my true wisdom? Am I acknowledging my feelings, needs, boundaries? Am I open with myself? Am I being kind to myself? And we can just notice if any answers rise up in there as well, just more invitations to practice self-connection and maybe be a signpost to help us look at a particular piece of our life to practice with. I think I'm seeing that connection here, pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
I totally agree.
Okay.
So I find it helpful just for myself to lump this topic of self-connection into three parts. And you've actually already alluded, I think, to all of these, Aimee. And I like this too because it ties into self-awareness, which we talked about last time. So let me just highlight a couple of things. So see if I can describe it in a way that makes sense. So these three domains are: one, acceptance of true self; two, acceptance of your inner experience; and then three, acceptance of your outer life situation. So let's just look at these in reverse order. So we'll start with the life situation. This is what we often identify as the problem, the source of our stress. Some people call it our drama, and sometimes we can get attached to our drama, maybe just because we're so used to it, because it's been there with us for so long. And it can be strangely hard to let go of the sources of pain, even though we want to be free of that pain. Truth is, nobody is completely free of painful life situations, though. But it is important that we don't take those painful life situations and then pile on top of it more self-judgment, which is what we frequently do. That little voice in our head says things like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I should have done this thing differently. It's my fault. Why do I keep creating these problems for myself?
You are in my head
Oh
right
my
now.
God, it comes so easily
So quick,
out of
so
me.
quick.
So noticing when we're saying things like this to ourselves, just noticing it can give us a little distance from it. You know, we can see it for what it is. This is just something outside of myself that is causing me pain or stress. That's it. It's nothing more than that. And it's nothing we did to ourselves purposely. You know, basically, we just want to create a little distance from this. The second domain is acceptance of our inner experience. And this is where I think the mindfulness or Buddhist idea, this distinction between pain and suffering becomes really helpful. These outer experiences that we just talked about create pain, and to a degree that is unavoidable. But our inner reaction to that pain is what causes suffering, largely because we want it to be different than it is. And that's what's called resistance. The antidote to resistance is acceptance. And in the case we're talking about now, it means accepting our reactions to what's happening. All the fear, the sadness, the belief that we somehow attract these problems because we're so flawed in some way or another. We can see that those reactions are just kind of the mind doing its thing, and we can accept them and we can let them go. And we can take it one step further. We can accept ourselves for the fact that we're having those reactions. So let's say I'm responding to something with fear. I accept that I feel fearful. I can see that. I notice it in myself. I can accept, okay, right now I'm feeling fear. And I can accept that I am someone who tends to react to things with fear. So I can do it at both of those really important levels. The third domain is what I'm calling acceptance of true self. And I think I'm actually going to set that aside for a moment, put it on the shelf and come back to it later. Sorry, Aimee. I know it's a teaser. I will definitely come back to it. I promise.
And this is like before we end today, or do we have to wait till next episode?
You'll just have to see.
Good gracious. All right. I accept that I am frustrated with Henry's. No. Okay. I accept that. Good for you, Henry. I'll give us some, like another, maybe a few cues here that I like when we're talking about self-acceptance, particularly when we're talking about self-connection. And it's something that psychologists Carl Rogers and Albert Ellis described as unconditional self-acceptance. And I think it can be easy to kind of bristle at this as being too easy on ourselves or something. And so sometimes it can help to flip it. Conditional self-acceptance. This is what the majority of us do. We condition our self-acceptance on a demand, on lots of demands. I'll accept myself after I quit smoking, or after I lose 20 pounds, or after I get in a relationship, or after I make $75,000 this year. All of these conditions that we have to meet before we love ourselves, before we accept ourselves, before we connect with ourselves. And of course, we do it because we want to make some kind of change and we think it'll help us get over the finish line, but it doesn't. I mean, we really have to look at this. We are giving ourselves the message that we are not worthy of acceptance, love, connection, unless we meet these demands. And every time we do not meet a demand, we cement that belief. We anchor it that I am not worthy of acceptance or love until I meet the demands set for me, set by others. So, like anything we do over and over again with practice, we get better at it. It's not something we really want to practice. So, as we continue to condition our acceptance and miss the goal again and again, the belief gets stronger, it gets wider, the net gets cast further. You kind of grow in this thinking that others don't accept or love me unless I meet their demands. I start to hold that same love and acceptance as ransom for others as well. So we just continue to expand and kind of project this as well. Do this for me, believe this way, act this way, and then I'll give you love and acceptance. So this could be really great if it worked. Again, if this kind of conditional acceptance and love promoted behavior change, man, we would all be on the straight and narrow, just rocking it. But it just doesn't work. It's actually pretty irrational. Many of us have been parented or educated or employed this way, though. So even though it doesn't work, we are surrounded by this irrational approach and we employ it on ourselves, and it just holds us back. So unconditional self-acceptance is really the only logical way to care for ourselves if we want to grow. I sincerely believe that. If we want to live more joyfully, if we want to connect with ourselves and connect with others, we need unconditional self-acceptance, continuing to grow in that practice. And one simple way to sort of play with this is to use the practice of Illeism and create a simple affirmation followed with a supportive touch. So this is brain training and nervous system training. We talked about Illeism a few episodes back. I'll link to it. Essentially, Illeism is the use of third-person perspective when talking to yourself. So you use the pronoun you, or him, her, she, they, or your name to talk to yourself. One way to take action here, if you started your many selves list from last episode, consider pulling that out again today or soon and see if you can add a few more items to it, no matter how small, using the you perspective. So approach the list almost as another person generating it for you with this little bit of psychological distancing, I bet you can add a few more items to it. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go back to last episode and you can walk through that exercise. And one more practice that you can consider to create an affirmation with Illeism, and that really hits on self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-connection, is to create an affirmation that you can write down, that you can look at, reflect on even daily. And for me, it's really simple. Here it is. You are a person worth knowing, and you are worthy of acceptance. Take that, if you like, as an affirmation. To that, you can add some supportive touch, I think is really powerful. So just use your hands and place soft but noticeable pressure on your body, on a place that feels comforting for you. Could be center of your chest, it could be on your legs, over your stomach, over your eyes or ears, if that feels good, wherever. So when these feelings of self-judgment and self-criticism rise up, I think the key is here, like, we don't need to fight them off. We can move our attention to an affirmation like this with some supportive touch. Just say it a few times. And yes, it is not a magic pill. This will not immediately stop our lack of self-acceptance or our negative self-talk, but it will stand up to it. We're helping the brain to kind of take a different road, and it will help us to avoid moving from self-evaluation into self-judgment like so rapidly and so frequently. Key here. We can still self-evaluate and even realize we're missing the mark and not come down on ourselves unfairly. So unconditional self-acceptance isn't something that encourages you to just skate by or become a lazy leech. It's actually about waking us up and not wasting time on or getting stuck in cycles of rumination and negative self-talk that is so unhelpful, to say the least. We have to practice something else to get out of that. And so at some point with continued practice, that affirmation, whatever one you created, will feel more real and right and true. And that affirmation will start to grow taller and bigger. And those unfair self-critical thoughts often can get smaller in the shadow of that affirmation and the practices that you engage with, and they can show up less frequently.
I love that, Aimee.
I
And
do
it is
too. It works.
it does work. And it's the perfect segue to that third aspect of self-acceptance
Oh,
that I
thanks, Lorraine.
promised. I knew if I waited, it would be able to come back.
It was
So,
inspired. I love it.
yes.
Good.
So, and I think it's perfect because true self gives us the kind of unconditional acceptance that you just talked about. Of all the kinds of self-acceptance that we have talked about, I think this is both the easiest and the hardest to practice. It's easy because in true self, there is no judgment, none. Acceptance is its very nature, but it's hard because we so often forget that it's there or don't even quite realize that it's there. The single reason we need to learn and practice self-acceptance is because of the nature of the mind, or let's call it the untamed mind. Its job is to see what's wrong, try to make sense of it, and fix it if possible. But all of that leads to judgment, comparisons, blaming others or ourselves. And all of those negative thoughts create unpleasant feelings, which we know all too well. But none of that is who we really are. Who we really are is what we're calling our true self or authentic self or higher self. It is the consciousness that we all have, that we're all capable of. The consciousness which is able to observe all of our inner and outer experiences without judgment or fear. And that's what we're wanting to tap into with practices like the one you just described, Aimee. So the only thing to accept about true self is that it exists. And maybe the easiest way to do that, honestly, is by experiencing it directly in much the way that you just described. when we offer ourselves a genuine affirmation, that comes from true self. When we give ourselves a supportive touch, that comes from true self. When we can feel real compassion for ourselves, seeing how strong and courageous we are just to keep going in the face of all the obstacles, that comes from true self. It is the part of us that knows we are enough, just as we are.
Yes. It was worth the wait, Henry.
I'm glad.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the acceptance that self-acceptance is a practice, and we're like waking up these pieces of ourselves that true self that needs a microphone. It's like these kind of dormant muscles that we maybe haven't used in a while. Man, we can wake them up and bring them back into awareness, bring them back into activity so that they can contribute to our self-acceptance, to our self-awareness, to our self-connection, to our joy. Yes. So we've got more to talk about next episode with self-alignment, which is like we're kind of bringing everything together as well. So be sure to tune in for that episode. To close us today, I want to share some wisdom from Brené Brown. Here it is. The truth is, belonging starts with self-acceptance. Your level of belonging, in fact, can never be greater than your level of self-acceptance, because believing that you're enough is what gives you the courage to be authentic, vulnerable, and imperfect.
Thank you for listening to the Joy Lab podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, visit joylab.coach to learn more about the full Joy Lab program. Be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.
Please remember that this content is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to provide medical advice and is not a replacement for advice and treatment from a medical professional. Please consult your doctor or other qualified health professional before beginning any diet change, supplement, or lifestyle program. Please see our terms for more information.